Now, the US State Department's warned of consequences if Israel implements a ban on the main UN aid agency for Palestinians as a humanitarian crisis in northern Gaza intensifies. It says the legislation could have an effect on US policy. It comes as local health officials reported more than 90 people killed in an Israeli airstrike on Tuesday on a residential building in the town of Beit Lahia in northern Gaza. Israel doesn't allow international journalists, including the BBC, into Gaza. Our special correspondent Fergal Keane sent this report from Jerusalem, a warning it contains distressing images of the aftermath of the strike.
Burying the dead in Beit Lahia. At any time, expelling the main aid agency for Palestinians would have been controversial. But in the middle of this, it's provoked widespread international criticism. Dozens killed in an Israeli airstrike, many of them children, according to health officials. In Gaza City, where many from Beit Lahia have fled, another strike, the dead lying among market stalls. These boys wondering how to help. There are nearly 2 million displaced in Gaza, facing famine, the UN says, and depending on Unrwa for the basics of survival. Within 3 months, the agency is to be shut down.
I mean, it's absolutely outrageous. We said that the prospect of this vote was outrageous. The fact that the vote has happened is equally outrageous. It creates an incredibly dangerous precedent, not just for this region, but potentially with international implications in other places.
Israel has accused Unrwa staff of being involved in the October 7th attacks. Allegations were made against 19 staff out of 13,000. 9 were subsequently fired. Today I met one of the government MPs sponsoring the legislation.
The determination of fighting terrorism is a consensus, and this is part of it. Unrwa has decided on the 7th to go on the wrong side of history.
So no matter what pressure comes from the Americans or from anybody else, this bill will not be withdrawn. You will go ahead with expelling Unrwa.
So first of all, I have to understand...
No, but it's a really straightforward question. Yes
I
or
will
no?
give you... Yes, definitely.
You will not back down?
Of course not.
Okay.
Of course not, because we believe in our bill and because it's a just and right bill.
The reality is that Gaza needs vastly increased amounts of aid. Today we managed to contact on a poor phone line one of only 2 doctors left dealing with hundreds of patients at Hamas-run hospital.
But we have now a situation catastrophic. We received about a lot of patients, injured and dead people from a house in the family of Nasser. So we don't have medical staff.
Then we lost contact. There's the debate about what might or might not happen with Unrwa. And there's this, the certainty of relentless suffering. Fergal Keane, BBC News, Jerusalem.
The BBC's Yola Nell in Jerusalem told me what more is emerging about yesterday's strike on northern Gaza.
Well, that was commented on by the US State Department spokesman yesterday. He described it as being a horrifying incident with horrifying results. Noted the reports that there were children among those who reported to have been killed. I asked the Israeli military about that again this morning, and they said that they were looking into the reports that civilians had been harmed. They said that there had previously been warnings by the Israeli military to evacuate this area in the north of Gaza, where of course there have been for the past few weeks this intensification of Israel's military offensive. It says that in general it has been trying to root out Hamas fighters to stop them from regrouping, and they describe this building as having been inside an active combat zone.
Israel coming under from the US over strikes like this, the killing of civilians, the lack of aid getting into northern Gaza, and of course that vote yesterday to ban Unrwa.
Yeah, I mean, that legislation that was passed on Monday night, that has really sort of been sinking in, news of that. And when we spoke to people in Gaza through local cameramen, I mean, you just felt that this deepened their misery. There was one displaced woman who said, you know, who now will care for my son when he gets sick? He would go normally to the Unrwa clinics. Who will bring us flour and those basics? Another man who was a registered refugee told us that, you know, this really amounted, he felt, to another war on Palestinians. This was a discussion that took place at the UN Security Council where the Israeli ambassador was continuing to put forward Israel's arguments, really accusing Unrwa of being complicit with Hamas, with terrorism, something it strongly denies. We had the US ambassador to the UN really pointing out that so far Israel, in the Americans' view, is not meeting its commitments, that letter was sent 2 weeks ago, setting a 30-day deadline for Israel to increase the amount of aid going into Gaza in quite dramatic terms, or face consequences in terms of US military aid transfers for weapons that it relies on.
Yolande Nell.